Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another CPtechnicraft Live. And today, first off, I'm going to show this 100 by 3 wall door I guess I built. I didn't cover it up. This is just the mechanics with an actual object in there for the door. And it's not really too complicated. The hardest part about it is timing it so that it doesn't get all, multiple different portions. It looks a little like choppy, but there's not much I can do about that. That's a graphics thing beyond my capability. Timing wise, basically it starts from here. These are all just a bunch of individual double piston extenders and then just a single piston up on the top. In order to time everything so that everything goes off at the same time, once I have all the redstone, main power from the switch laid out for the top and the bottom. You see, that's what this back line is here. And the same thing coming up on that side. I have to factor in how many repeaters there are before the piston, what's going to fire the pistons, as well as how many different junctions there are. So, like for instance here, this first piston, it only actually takes, I don't count those because everybody has to suffer from the 1 tick delay of those 2 repeaters. So I don't have to worry about this repeater and then the repeater necessary to activate that redstone there. So that would be 2 ticks to that one. Well, to this next section, it only takes 2 sections per side, 4 total all the way across to make it all light up. It takes an extra repeater to get here, so that would mean this one would fire in 3 ticks, where that one would fire in 2. So I would just set the repeater to an extra tick and make it 3 there, and then it would be 3 here. And then I had to go through, of course, and look at it, go through how many it's going to get to by the time it gets to this one and this one. And it turns out by the time it gets to this one, there's a total of 7 ticks delay. So then I have to go back and make sure that basically everybody else is coming in at that same. Like this one right here, see it's got that 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's number 5. So I set it 2 more tick delay. It's on a 3 tick delay there for a total of 7. That's why I ended up having to move things and make this one bigger. You see it's got 1, 2, and this one would be 3, and then this one is set to 4 ticks, which makes 7. That way when I flip the switch, in theory, there should be no delay from a piston at that end on the top or bottom and a piston at that end at the top or the bottom. If you're watching the pistons and not the actual gravel or sand that's in the middle level, because that's what that is. It's sandstone, rough sandstone on the top and bottom, and then a layer of just sand in the middle, because there's nothing to move that sand in the middle out of the way. That was the trick to the other design I had. But the pistons themselves, they all just move. That was this design here. It closes, and the reason that there's a block there and a block there is I actually put a separate piston set over here, right there, that controls that block. And pretty much when moving that block off to the side, it creates a gap in the floor. So what I had to do to get around that was put a double piston extender here that pushes this piece of sand in the place of that hole. I really should have put a switch on the other side too. Oh, maybe I'll wire that in here. See it. you see at the end, you saw that one pop out and the one pops into the wall. There was no absolute reason I had to do that other than I kind of wanted it to be as much brick as it could. And I knew that if I went that little extra mile to move this brick out of the way, plus it makes the whole doorway when it's open look uniform. So that's all I did. And it's all about the timings. See here, in order to get that piece of sand to come in and out because of the way that the machine actually activates, um, if you take it away too late, if you pull back that sand even a second or so late, or 1-2 ticks late, it screws the whole machine up because the bottom piston will shove up into it, and it'll take this one and stick it in the wrong place, and then when the door opens again, everything's all screwy. So I had to time it so that this piston right here actually yanks back right away as soon as the power is disconnected. Um, that's done right here. The switch is right there, directly powering this. So the moment that the power is put into play, that piston gets powered and activates the first one here. It comes out and touches that one. Now, when you go to open the door to prevent it from just jamming it into the doorway, I've got this delay over here. And I didn't need a huge delay, so I wasn't going to do anything elaborate, just a few repeaters on 4 ticks. It gave me 12-second delay, which was long enough for the machine to move everything out of the way and create that slot on the floor. And that second piston activates and shoves it out there. Same thing on the retract, if you notice, because that first piston is connected directly to the power. The very second that the power gets turned off, that piston loses power. And the machine already has, just from the start, 1, 2, 3 ticks of delay before any of the pistons will get a signal to turn on or turn off down on the bottom side. And that's all it takes, is that, you know, it's safe to have a 2-tick delay, but even a 1-tick delay is possible, but 2 ticks is better. And then you get, see, it immediately yanks that piece out of the way, door pushes up, block slides over. I like stuff like this. I just, most of the time I end up having to have a purpose for something before I come up with an idea. I don't always just randomly like, hey, today I'm going to build a door randomly and I'm going to do it like this. It's usually like, you know, I want something here to do this purpose. Let me make a door and then look at the sizes I got to work with and all that. And then I start going. That's why initially I started this whole door adventure the last week or so, is because I just wanted a door to go across, like a cutout in a mountain that leads into my base. Looking around for doors, I had an odd size. I had 9 blocks of space before you went mountainside to mountainside in this pass. I did not feel like making the pass any bigger. I don't think I need to. But I had to cover that whole span, and I didn't want to do it with a small door. I think that kind of defeated the purpose of having a big gap. So I initially thought about making it, you know, flush with the side walls and just a 9x9 door that drops. But playing around a little bit and looking and not finding anything really that would help me out. Nobody had anything that was like 9x4 or 5 or 6. It was 6x6, 10x10, 8x8. So I found somebody that had plans for a 7x5, and it works, but it's only really working for me one-sided. Meaning that if I built this thing as a doorway somewhere, it would be better to be a door to a room, because you can't actually, hey guys, Sorry, I had to chat in the background. Hi Tyler. Redstone wizardry. Yeah, it's just techie nerd stuff. That's why I like it, and it's something completely different than just digging holes all the time. But so yeah, and then it evolves. Let's see, what was the first rendition? I think that was this one over here. Is this one? Yeah. And it started out one-sided, and then I made it two-sided, and I can get either side to work perfect without pretty much without flaw by themselves. Disconnected from the other side, don't use the other side. This side will work perfect. The problem I run into is if I try to run both at the same time, it jams up. One side will go up and work fine. The other side will go up and get all screwy. 5 p.m. Right on. Because I have questions and anxieties. Um, so after numerous attempts, I tried all kinds of things. I took it down to just one flying machine and tried to see how far I could go with like slime blocks all the way across and holding things. And it turns out that no matter what I do, you've only got so many extra blocks you can attach to these flying machines individually that'll work. And it just, I couldn't get that to work. And I didn't like the fact that you were exposed to this side of the door if you were in the room when you closed the door so that nobody knew you were in there necessarily. So I didn't scrap the idea or abandon it as much as I just put a pin in it. And maybe I'll put a little pin above it there just to mark that. Then I tried another flying machine type. The only problem I had with this one here was this set of pistons here. I haven't figured out something, at least not till maybe the next patch comes out. I'm hoping it's something to do with the copper and some of their redstone interactions might make it so I can alleviate the need for these pistons. Because basically this observer move or sends a signal, fires this piston's moving, sends a signal, and a block update to this observer, and then fires that piston, and boom, the one side moves. It's really simple, easy to recreate, not very complicated in components and stuff. Problem is that piston jumps out every time it moves one block. And hopefully it's set up to be working properly so I can actually just click it and show you. Boom, 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 boom. And what happens then is if I have anything right here at all in this thing's movement, which means there can't be anything in that position higher than these observers, because this will either move it out of the way or it'll jam up. I tried obsidian there to keep it from moving it, and of course the flying machine just jammed and stopped working. So after a little while messing with that, I was like, nah, there's something I can do with that. I just got to find the right part to do the same thing that this piston is doing. And I just haven't researched that enough. This was working on that piston design, trying to make it smaller and not successful. And then, of course, this design for the doorway, which right now stands as the one that will go in sometime in the next few days, I suppose. What were you? Ah, yes, this was the precursor to that one. This was the one that had no side door. And then I can replace these ones here if I want to with stone brick. And it's cool. But these have to be some kind of like gravity object, some kind of block that falls if there's nothing below it. So sand, concrete, powder, stuff like that. Anvils, if you want to see through, I suppose you could put anvils there. And that's why I went with this design here, was because there was less of that. And even if somebody accidentally came through and knocked these out, no mob is getting through. Worst case scenario, a witch or a skeleton or something like that gets a hold of you. But for the most part, zombies and all that would still be blocked out even if those blocks were removed. That's why I went with that whole elaborate piston system on the side just to make it happen. No, you're fine, babe. My sorting system, they've changed over the years. They've gotten much more compact, especially when the target block came out. But in essence, this comparator right here reads a signal of this block. And if you don't know a whole lot about redstone, hoppers and chests and things like that, dispensers, droppers, they will give a reading on a comparator depending upon the amount of items that are in it and the type of item. Um, like an item that can be stacked to 64 has less redstone potential signal value than, say, like um, a bow or something like that, which is a non-stackable item. And I named snow, actually, like, you know, it falls out of the sky, snow, renamed it sorter on an anvil just so that never would there be anything like this set through the system. Because if I accidentally screwed up and sent my redstone box through the system with the sorter blocks in there, it would screw up every single one of these until it pulled them all out of the system. It probably wouldn't wreck a whole lot of the system. I can't imagine that it would take out more than 5 or 10 at the most. But it would be annoying, and it would probably be really obvious to me what had happened. But that being said, so you use up these spaces, nothing else will ever try to get on top of them, and they give a very, very low redstone signal. Added to the 41 detector rails means nothing can get into this hopper except for a sorter or a detector rail. At this point, it's got just enough redstone signal to not light up this last one. So the redstone signal being output is 3, I believe, right now. This block, this redstone, that redstone, and there's 4 redstone before it gets to this block. Now we filled this up at this point right to the edge of that. 42 pieces or 42 detector rails right there would actually be enough to cause the 4th redstone to light up, which would shut this torch off, which is powering this block that's actually locking this hopper right here, preventing it from working and taking in any items. So for a split second, when there's 42 of these in there, the whole system will activate. It'll unlock that piston because it shuts that torch off, and 1 item will drop out, and then it'll immediately lock right back up. So it's basically like an electronic key. And the beauty of them is you can stack them together. The only limitation you have is your delivery system. Doing the water flow, I found that when you're traveling, say, over top of hoppers in specific, but maybe something like a composter, if you were to do that for any reason, any block that you can actually fall into a little bit, when the water travels over top of it, it loses strength in like its push as it goes. And if you go more than 5 spaces with it, that's this world right here is not how I found that out. I found it out when I built this model in the, on my server. That's when I ran into the problem because you see, I didn't finish this. I just wanted to get the footprint because I know that I've used this style of sorter forever, so I never had to really go in depth, but I'd never set it up quite like this. But I found that it has to be from the source of the flow and no more than a total of 5 blocks from the source over. Any more than that, in that 6th one, your items might just fall and sit right in there in a pile. And you could have thousands of items, and if you don't realize it, about it the hard way, you end up with a situation where your items are in the world sitting like that for too long and they despawn and then you just lose them. So yeah, the idea of this being 8 was a dream because you have to break it up and start a new one and break it up and start a new one every 5. So I don't know if you'll ever need that information, but there it is just in case. What else do I got over here in my test world? Oh, this is, I think, my loader design. Yep, I think I've showed this before, but this is like underneath my gold farm and underneath my iron farm, and most farms as I build them, there's a setup like this, and this just takes the items produced by the farm. Right here, you trigger the cart with a chest. Normally these systems are more automated, but I have a lever here just to kind of show you. That would be the signal that we get when you're in a cart carrying you or a cart carrying full of product passed over the railway. It would automatically reload the system. There's nothing in here right now. Oh, I've got the hopper locked. There we go. And it fills up. Now this right here coming off of it, this was an oopsie. What I found through all of my testing and trying to make this work, because I'm just a damn determined kind of guy, that when, say, a cart leaves that station and heads down the rail towards its destination, if it goes to the point where it's out of your sight off in the distance and it stops moving because it's out of your actual ticking area for your player, you run the risk of, if another one comes off of there and runs down here, it will run into that one and they'll stay paused like in that moment. But the moment you load them up, if they haven't managed to despawn, because that unfortunately happens every so often, the one that was second will bounce into it and come flying back. And when it comes flying back, it would jam up into that machine, knock a cart out of that machine, take off. Both it and the cart it knocked out would activate 2 new carts to pop in here, and this would be a cycle. I kid you not, I came down one day when I was testing this out, and I had like 8 carts flying back and forth, slamming in and out of this machine. They were all picking up 1 or 2 items as they went, and it was a nightmare. And then they all tried to go into my delivery system, the unloading station at the tower. And you saw I did a lot of work there to try to alleviate what I thought was just an overloading problem. But then I found that whole scenario happening. So what I did was I built a rebound. If a cart comes flying back for any reason, it gets knocked off into this side rail here and spins around and attempts to go back out. And if it can't and gets knocked around, then it just bounces back and forth. And then I ran into another scenario where this cart leaving would be timed just right with the one that was trapped here, and it would hit it and bounce and come back and come over here. So I built on the gold farm. I could show you that 2 much larger sets of side rails like that. They will catch the carts as they go, and there's a lot more distance between here and this place than there is here. This was just a proof of concept kind of a thing. And since then, I've had absolutely no problems. If I don't take the automatic AFK system that I built there, which every time a cart comes out of one of them and leaves the main system and goes off to the tower, it activates a cart that you're sitting in while you're AFK running the machine and sends it with this cart over to the tower and stalls you out of the tower for a couple of minutes while it partially unloads that cart and then brings you back and resets everything for you, because I am that kind of guy. This was, I don't even remember what this was. I think this was just to figure out something with rail switching, I guess, how reliable it was or something. I'm not exactly sure. I tried my hands at an iron farm. It works. It produces. But it's no real special to any other one I've built by other people. I think the rates are comparable to some of the, standard, like, I don't know, 400 or 500 iron an hour or some nonsense like that. The zombie was, I don't know. I figured, I don't know, maybe if I scare the villagers into calling a golem, it'll work faster. But I think the way I have the zombie set up or something is not really all that great. And then we got my sheep farm. I wanted to see how compact I could get it. I could have probably I could have shrunk it down and made it a little bit wider on this end all the way across instead of bumping it out on both sides, but I didn't. And the main reason is I think there was two sheep that didn't quite fit the narrative here. But I still think I mean, how many sheep are there actually down there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 or 16 sheep there. And one though, that's a pretty small area for that. So, yeah. All in all, I said that was just fun and silly to do. And then this is, and I make a lot of my projects very big, like spaced out wise when I start, because sometimes I'll run into a situation where it's like, I've got so much built, but I cramped myself into a corner and I need more space in between something. And the only way I can get it is to like completely tear apart a section and rebuild the whole section. And if I can avoid doing that, I would like to, but it happens. But this was, as you see the top part here, was just like that one over there, except this one actually has a redstone signal associated with it. And I believe, let's see, we'll just run it because I'll bet there's cards. All right, he's just straight shot. This should be the first rail to the right. Whoop. And there it is, it reset. So if I send another one right now, it should go straight down the middle again. And it probably come right back. Oh, nope, didn't come back. You know, the same thing here. I hit this one, trigger and go. And this one should go right down the middle. And that was it. That was where I left off on that one. Oh, he bounced back. And all that is that I just used the detector rail to verify that it came down. And it comes right back over and it triggers the timer over here to fire off and yeah, definitely am. And pretty much whatever I can do that just helps the group out as a whole. Because I mean, you've also seen that if 10,000 hours of mining is required for a project, that I'm not scared. And this was updates for my gold farm. This is going to be, well, this line right here is going to get replaced with a water stream because it's so much more efficient and less laggy. Because these things right here, they update like constantly and they're always looking for an input and they always check above them and what have you constantly. Um, so sometimes you can put composters on top of hoppers that you don't need actually any access to the hopper itself for any reason. Um, and it might actually reduce a little bit of lag if you've got a lot of hoppers in play and you have some that you can do that with because it checks every single slot of every item that's possibly or potentially above it. So if you put a chest or anything like that above it, it's just going to read every slot. But I mean, I suppose you could put a blank block above it. I don't know how that works. I haven't tried that. But this was coming off of the Trident Killer for the gold farm. This is going to be the system right directly below it. and that will inject everything coming from the system into a water stream, and then that water stream will just pass. Well, where'd it go? There it is. We'll just pass right through here, and that will sort it all out. I stopped the implementation of this, like I was going to do it already, and the only reason I didn't was because right around the time that I did this, the videos were starting to come out with the autocrafter being able to be automated, and I realized that I could basically take almost everything from the output of my gold farm, break it down into gold blocks if I wanted to before I sent it off. So instead of having to have this massive system of carts for every single item, I would have two. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to wait till that thing comes out and I get the official word on how it's going to work um, before that. I do. I just like this game. So, and I tell you, I played it on in like this mode, creative mode, for years, and that was almost the only way I played it. I built my first world was I just started messing around building a little city, and then my nephew's like, "Whoa, hey, you should build an aircraft carrier." So off on the side of the city, I suddenly made a big body of water because I did it in a super flat world, and I did the best I could to make like a huge aircraft carrier docked on the side of the city, and um, it definitely looked like an aircraft carrier, but it was not the world's greatest rendition. So I figured I'd stick with things I'm better at, and I did that for a long time. Just built cities and structures and stuff, and messed around with trying to figure out how to do interiors. The one thing I figured out about interiors, I'm not good at it. I will build it. I'll put floors, windows, doors in it. But when it comes to decorating it up and making it look like entertaining or inviting, I am not your guy. That is a limitation I have. And then this is a little ribbon tape. I have or had an idea I thought of for one of these, but I kind of lost it in the night that I built this because I think I just spent too much time playing with it. Um, but I made this little timer set up so that I could run it without having to flick a lever every single time I wanted it to work. Just because I wanted to have the idea saved again in a world. But yeah. So somebody on Twitter challenged me to make this wall or make a wall of 100 by 32. Well, here's 100 by 3. Now I just got to come up with the other 29. I'm not sure yet how I'm doing that. I have been thinking about it because it is not a simple solution. But I feel like I want to find a solution. So I'm gonna think of something. It's probably gonna be really crazy and absurd. I hope. Those are always my favorite ideas. But yeah, so that's a walk through some redstone. That's why if people got ideas or projects and things like that, like I'll give it a shot, see if I can come up with a solution or two or three. Um, I kind of like challenges. Sometimes challenges are a little bit more than my capabilities will bring out, but I guarantee I'll learn something new every single time I take something on. I just do, and I think that's the thing I like and enjoy the most about it. That and the satisfaction of flipping a lever and watching things go woo and up and down and stuff. I love that too. But that being said, that is all I got for today because now it's time to go shopping because we're hungry. So I will talk to all of you later and have a wonderful day.